Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We went to movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained best pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the favorite bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey,
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Tennis Podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
Happy almost summer, people.
Almost summer. And
Rolling in.
everybody's
to the
favorite holiday.
Memorial Day.
And no, Sweetie's birthday.
Wow, that was last week. What?
No, but we always do a big, Sweetie
know.
birthday movie pick, and we missed it this year. Sweetie's pregnant. She's got pregnant brain.
I gotta be honest, I'm a big birthday person, and this was the first year I was like, I don't know, I don't care. I'm just trying to grow a human.
But
It really just is taking a lot out of me. So, we didn't do a birthday movie. I mean, we've done like 2 in the past. I mean, remember those 4
yeah,
years?
you're a greedy birthday movie
so
person.
Dang spoiled. But also, like, I've run out of definitely like my favorite movies now, as we're in our 5th year or whatever this is. So so we didn't do like a big
I feel
thing.
like Her Alibi could count as a birthday movie because you always talk about that movie.
Okay, yeah. Let's say that's it. But so yeah, my birthday was last week. Great, I'm 38. Woohoo! But we're rolling into Memorial Day weekend here, guys, which is what I heard on the radio today is the unofficial start of the summer season.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
I'm pretty sure. Isn't that like the rule, or like the only time you can wear white is between like Memorial Day and Labor Day or something?
Good call.
I don't know. It's like 2 bookends. 2 bookends
2 bookends
of the summer.
But yeah, I agree.
And we knew that because we
it's-
worked in an ice cream store, and it was very much like we had a big rush on Memorial Day, but then people kind of didn't really come until like very end of June,
4th of July.
Yeah. So it was really surprising. On the Cape, really, really just busy July and August. Who knew?
Well, there's no long weekends in June, though. Now a lot of people and places are celebrating Juneteenth, which my company is. So that's kind of the one, which is pretty cool, and kind of goes hand in hand with the 4th of July. I just listened to a podcast about it. Anyway, what are we talking about?
I don't know. So
Anyway, coming in your long weekend, guys.
You know who else
And-
turned 30 years old?
What?
I'm just kidding. You already said that you were 38. You ruined my punchline.
Oh my God, I'm older than this movie. I feel sick.
Yeah, so the big news is that Thelma and Louise, the movie, turned 30 years old yesterday or the day before. I don't know, at some point.
Gotta be honest, thought it was older. You're looking good, Thelma and Louise, but I thought you were older.
Well, when was it? So when was it made?
91.
91. I can't do math. I didn't know. I was like 82.
I don't know. I thought it was 80s. I thought it was an 80s movie.
I guess
Not
that makes
like-
sense because it was right on the brink of the
Yeah.
explosion that was Brad Pitt and like that whole thing. And it was kind of like after Geena Davis's kind of explosion. So that fits. For show. Okay. So, but did we tell them? Okay. So the movie is, we always do that. We're like, they know what we're talking about because they can
Well,
read
you
our
did
minds.
say it, so I'm sure
they
they
can read
get
our
it.
minds. They saw what
the
the
movie
episode
is
is called. The movie is Thelma,
Thelma
and
Louise. So we picked this because this morning's, or it was yesterday. Yeah, Sweetie was like, "Oh, it's the 30th anniversary of that movie." I read this good article about it, and I was like, "Yo, funny story. I watched that movie when I was a kid. Got to the rape scene, was terrified, shut it off, never watched the rest of it." Yeah. So I've always been interested in this movie, but just never like completed the circle. However, it became such a pop culture juggernaut that like you kind of knew, you knew a lot about it without seeing it, kind of a thing, including the very famous unexpected ending which spoiler alert, they drive off the cliff, right? Which, always sticks out as my mind as a scene in Wayne's World 2 when they're doing those alternate endings, and Wayne's like, let's do this Thelma and Louise ending.
And we hadn't seen Thelma and Louise, but we saw Wayne's World 2, so it's like that was our connection to this movie. So like while we didn't necessarily grow up with Thelma and Louise, we basically did by via Wayne's World 2. So I'm gonna count it. I watched this a couple years ago, 10 years ago. I don't know. I'm just putting out a number. At one point, and when everyone has that year where you're like, I'm gonna watch a lot of movies, and you're like, I'm gonna watch all those movies that I've always wanted, been like, I should watch that movie, and I never did. I'm gonna watch those movies.
Yeah.
So I think that was this year. So I watched Thelma and Louise, loved it.
Well, I have to say the podcast is now turning into maybe slightly less movies that shaped our childhood to movies that I missed out on from my childhood for me, because this year we've watched a lot that I know have talked about, or I know a lot about just because it's in the pop culture, like I said, but I've never seen. So that's what the year has kind of turned into for me, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I feel good about it. I feel like I'm going back to these movies that I clearly missed out of for one reason or another, and they're really good. So yay me!
I think
Happy
all
birthday to me.
we need to do is change our tagline a little bit, so it's like the movies. Hey, sweet. How does the intro go? Hi, guys. Okay, your favorite parts. We're just talk about their favorite
movies that shape.
Okay,
I always say movies that
do
shape their
different
childhood.
things. I say the favorite flicks from childhood.
Yeah.
We're too sweet. Start with their favorite. I want to add in
it's
and
the
yours,
weirdest
where
thing.
we talk about our favorite flicks and yours
cool.
or something. So
I just want to note that is very weird. Okay, we've done that intro 7,000 times, but we can only do it if we're doing it on the podcast in this order.
Yeah,
I can't.
it's so weird.
You can't point to me and be like, "What's the intro to Large Marge sent us?" I'm like, "Oh."
Ask me a different question.
I know it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
I
like
anyway,
it. It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah. Good point. So what I didn't know, going into this, obviously the two big stars, Geena Davis, Susan Sarandon, kick-ass bitches, we know. And I did not know until tonight that Ridley Scott directed this movie. Which was surprising to me, and it's cool. So, Ridley Scott, known for Blade Runner and Alien, right?
Yep.
But didn't know, this was another really big one for him, and cool movie for him to direct, I'd say.
Sure. Yeah. Good for him. So you said the people in it. So Susan
Who else?
Sarandon, obviously. Geena Davis, obviously. The debut of Brad Pitt, although they didn't do introducing Brad Pitt. So, because I guess he was in TV shows, maybe this was his film debut. I don't know.
This was his first movie? Okay, cool.
I thought so. I thought that was the whole funny thing. I don't know. Maybe not.
Originally, Billy Baldwin was cast. Ugh.
Yuck.
But he had to do a different movie. And then I guess Robert Downey Jr. got the role, but then they were like, you're too short next to Geena Davis, which I have heard he is very short. Someone said they saw him in person. I was like, whoa, that guy.
Well, how tall is he? Look it up.
I don't know, but I'm scared
to find out now. Producers, look it up.
Robert Downey Jr. height.
We should make a fake persona.
5'9".
That's not that short.
Any guy under 5'10" looks pretty short.
What? But I'm we're 5'3"-ish. We're midgies, so what? It can't be that bad. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. So
no offense to 5'9" guys.
You are beautiful. You are
beautiful. So Brad Pitt in all his he's so skinny and cute in this. As he's supposed to be, and very cowboy.
Sex scene though. Yowza.
You also have Harvey Keitel as the woman sympathetic
oddly
FBI agent.
The rare sympathetic to women
I'll
FBI
talk
agent.
about this later, but that got way over the top for
Yeah.
me. I'm like, especially the end,
Well,
I was like, dude, like, let it go.
Yeah, I was like, what is he basing this on? And like,
know.
why is he this like diamond in the rough? Like,
Yeah,
what?
it felt a little too much like they were trying to throw in, you know, clearly it's a movie about women trying to escape the patriarchy, and, you know, most of the women, men in their lives are terrible. And that goes through basically all the male characters almost. But it's like they had to throw a bone to men and being like, you're not that bad. Here's like a good guy to like represent the good guys. Really, it just felt like a little, over the top to me. But I always love a good Harvey Keitel performance.
Sure. Definitely.
It's cool. That always reminds me of, have you ever seen The Piano where you see like his penis?
No.
Pretty disturbing.
Gross.
I know.
Isn't that about like the Holocaust? Why do you see his penis?
No, The Piano is with the pianist is not peanut. the piano is with Holly Hunter. Remember, she's like deaf. Anna Paquin won as the Oscars.
I mixed them up. I never saw either of them, but okay,
it's
they're
bleak.
It's the same title, so it's confusing.
Michael Madsen. Who is like a scary face to me, but is also very attractive.
Yeah. Hello, see Free Willy for more information.
I know. I'm very confused about him in general.
No, that's
because
like,
I'm like you look like a rapist, but you're
that's definitely
cute.
That's definitely my aesthetic, and it happens all the time. I have the same feeling with a lot of like strange characters. So, you know,
so he's known for, as you just said, Free Willy. Good
Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs.
With Harvey Keitel.
Yes.
And
then
Brad Pitt. And they've all been in Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yes. You're right.
So, he's in Kill Bill. So, yeah. You know? Michael Madsen is not Harvey Keitel. But yeah.
Right. You have Christopher McDonald, a.k.a. I Eat Little Shits Like You for Breakfast from Happy Gilmore, as the terrible husband.
Is he in something else big, too, in the 80s? Because, like, I went through his whole thing, and I couldn't figure out, like, the movie where I'm like, that's where I know him from.
I looked through, and I didn't, like, see anything that really stood out.
So
I will tell you that he was engaged to Geena Davis at one point.
Yeah, I read that.
Ooh. So this was like a happy, like cathartic reunion for them that they got to play like
a guy who's abusive to his wife. Cool.
And she had just broken up with Jeff Goldblum like right before doing this.
Sad.
Yeah, the girls got game. Brad Pitt, as we said, and then randomly Stephen Tobolowsky.
We haven't seen him in so long.
Such a crazy understated role. I'm like, is that really you?
Miss him. Yeah. He's a psychic.
He
seemed
like
talked
so
about that.
different.
He's so cool.
Oh, really?
Cool. Yeah, he's like a real psychic. Yeah, I laughed too. I was like, what? Chris Lewis's
and
favorite, Stephen Tobolowsky.
Oh yeah, he's great. And then I don't know if you recognized him, but so the rapist, Harland, Timothy Carhart, is the Ghostbusters, like the violinist with the long hair who's like sniffing, like by the fountain. He's like talking to Sigourney Weaver.
Wait,
and remember when
the rapist is? No, he's like he's also in another movie as somebody, and I was like, I freaked out because he's the dad. He's the dad from Motocross was how I knew that actor. But then we were watching like another movie, and he was in it, so it must be something else.
Okay, well, I didn't recognize anything from his credits except it said Ghostbusters and it just said violinist.
Really
and I was like,
weird.
oh, that guy. So remember when they're like around the fountain and Bill Murray is in like a red jacket and doing like weird leg movements?
I thought that was the second one. Oh, no, because she's an art. Cause she's an art restorer in the second one.
Yes, yeah. So it's that guy who's like constantly like sniffing, and Bill Murray says something about it. I forget. But
why would anyone ever remember that guy is that guy? Like that could be a Rita Wilson situation. I don't know. We should check on that.
It's definitely that guy. You don't remember his face? It like
no, I don't even think the camera like got that close in, but I guess it did. God. Anyone else that we missed?
That's it.
That's it?
Yep. And I wanted to say that, so like I said, Ridley Scott, known for those two big films, Blade Runner and Alien. But did you know he also directed White Squall, G.I. Jane, and Gladiator?
Ridley Scott. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always forget which one was like his big movie, and it was Gladiator.
Yep.
Totally. Harlan is the rapist name. Gross.
I know. Ugh,
Like,
sick.
such a
So this
rapist.
film was nominated for 4 Oscars. Only won 1 for the original screenplay. You know, hats off to the original screenplays. We say it all the time. There's not enough of them. Good call on this one. I don't remember, but a woman wrote this.
I got it.
Okay.
Possibly Working Girl. Tim Draper.
Yes, he is. That was the credit. But who is that?
Like that guy, the other young guy who was like cute. Who?
Wait, no. Is he the guy in like the original Office that she works at? Who's like they're like a jerk to her.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's who it
Maybe.
is.
For some reason, I thought he had like
Unmemorable.
he had like a bigger role in a movie that we watched together.
No, I don't think so.
Fine.
So as I was saying, won the original screenplay Oscar, and then both the women were nominated for Best Actress, which doesn't happen. It's very rare. And then Ridley Scott was nominated for Director. However, unfortunately for Thelma and Louise, this was the same year as Silence of the Lambs, and that movie fucking swept.
Yeah.
So yeah, too bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sometimes you get too many good movies in one year. I mean, when has that happened recently? But it did used to. I feel like that was like kind of a thing. You just have these like banger years.
Because then you go back and you read the list of nominees or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, like whoa, crazy, what? You know, one of those things. Okay, the other thing could have been he's in CSI as Marge whatever's husband. And I had watched that sort of recently, so maybe that was in my head, and I talked about it to nobody except myself. So I mean, because we don't have serious memories attached, I guess, to this, we'll mostly probably just focus on the synopsis and talk about some themes and some stuff we liked. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Mm-hmm. Cool. Kick it off.
It's time for the sweet synopsis. Yeah. It is. My husband wasn't sweet to me, and look how I turned out.
Thelma and Louise are 2 besties living in where are we? Alabama? No.
Arkansas?
Maybe somewhere southern.
Let's say the middle.
Southern
southwest. Mid to southwest.
I was like, what's the mid south? Yeah, so they're beds. They're best buds. Louise works at a diner. She's pretty kick-ass. She seems to be pretty independent. You know, all the women who independent, throw your hands up at me.
I just want to interject and say, I hope that diners are right now, women do not have to wear those outfits anymore. Seems like a real drag. Between that and when I see old nurses' uniforms with like the paper hats, I'm like, this seems terrible. No, I'm just saying.
Where did you see one?
How do you do your jobs like in these outfits? This is what I'm getting at.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of diners do still have them wearing them because that's part of the charm, right? It's like you want that like old diner feel. So
it feels very sexist to me. All the it's all women
the men's
waitresses.
Had to wear like light shirts with like khakis or something like.
Unless they have to wear a classic wedge cap, I'm not on board.
I'm sure they would. Just how does it stay on? I don't know.
I don't know.
Never do. One breeze, that thing's gone. Cool breeze. It's later. Bye. So that is Louise. Her bud is Thelma, who's like this kind of naive, very pretty woman who's been married to her horrible husband since she was 18 years old, but they've been dating before that. So the only person she's ever been with, he treats her terribly. And she just kind of takes it, and he's obviously having an affair, and she's just kind of like, she hates him, but like, hasn't made any strong moves yet. So the weekends here, they're going on a girls' trip to some guy's like cabin in the woods or something. It's like this, you know, a MacGuffin. I guess you could. Is that like a MacGuffin? Maybe because it's like the something very important to the plot that you never see.
Yeah, maybe.
And yeah, so they're on their way there. Thelma decides not to tell her husband and leaves him a note instead, which are like, ooh, that's not going to go over well later. So they're off. And the first thing that happens is Thelma's like, let's stop to eat or something, like, and rest. Yeah, because they're like,
right.
They've been in the car for a long time. So they stop at this like roadside bar, which is like very lively and looks pretty fun. Line dancing, right? Essentially,
dancing,
yeah. I mean, what a trip! Seems pretty cool. I wish we had that.
Yeah, I mean, those definitely still exist.
It seemed like a good time. And Thelma, this is like the first time Thelma's been like out and about, it seems, in a very long time. So she's letting loose. She's pretty wild. She orders like a shot of whiskey right away, and then it convinces Louise just to have like 1 or 2 drinks. So they start relaxing a little bit, and immediately this creeper comes over named Harlan, and he's like super creepy, and is just like, you know, obviously enamored with Thelma. And it basically, you know, gives her a nod and tells her to like go on the dance floor with him. So then they're dancing and getting all smoochy and close, and Thelma's just like drinking. And Louise is like, "Ugh, we really need to go." And like, I'm totally Louise in like every situation.
Me too. I honestly had like PTSD during that scene, just from like how many times has that happened to me? Like my annoying friend was like, and they oftentimes like have a boyfriend too, and you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, do you really need this right now?
Like, you need to go.
I mean, can you not see through that guy like a million miles away? Like what a freaking creeper he was. And I mean, I think like you said, like she hadn't been out for a while. She clearly was like so over her husband, and to have someone else's attention, she just like really, really needed and wanted. And it was cool that Louise at least let her have that for like a little bit. But yeah, like let's fucking go. It's supposed to be a girls' trip, honey.
Yeah. So eventually Thelma feels ill. You know, she's drank a lot. It's probably a little hot in there. So she needs to go outside. So he like brings her outside. She throws up and is like sick. And Harlan immediately tries to get fresh with her and, you know, attempts to smooch her. And she's like, ew. She's like, I just barfed. Like, get the fuck away from me. And obviously he gets violent, and then she like pushes him away at some point, or like slaps him in the face, and he just flips out, throws her on the car, and like attempts to try to rape her. And meanwhile, Louise is like, where the fuck did Thelma go? And prior to this scene, Thelma unveils that she has taken with her this like little revolver that her husband Daryl gave her, but she doesn't know how to use it. But she brought it along because there might be bears in the woods or whatever else threats there are out there, you know?
Psycho killers.
So she gives it to Louise because Louise has shot a gun before and knows how to use one. So Louise has the gun. So she is standing there and is basically like, get the fuck off my friend or I'm going to shoot you in the balls. And he doesn't believe her. And I think, does she shoot at the ground or the air or something to like make sure he knows she's serious?
He's like, okay. Yeah. He's like,
let's go.
Yeah.
And then, he's like, oh, I should have raped her. You're a bitch. And then that just...
Once they're walking
away. And that sets Louise off, and she just pops him in the chest. Boom, boom. Dead. Guy is dead. So he's fucking dead. Thelma's shocked, terrified. She's like, what the fuck did you just do? And she's like, I've just been sick. Like, can you imagine that night? That is a crazy fucking night. Yeah. So they get in the car and they hightail it out of there. Nobody's witnessed the actual murder, but obviously people saw them there, and so they're pretty like freaked out. So Thelma's kind of like, what are we doing? Like, we have to go back. We have to tell them what happened. And Louise is like, no, Thelma, like, that's not the kind of world we live in. Like, everyone saw you dancing cheek to cheek with that guy. Like, they're not going to believe our story no matter what. And so this takes place in a different time, right? Not in 1991.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I was like
trying to
it
wrap
must
my
take
brain
place
around
in
that
the
too.
80s,
No,
or the
I think that's
70s.
just kind of how like Texas look like,
confusing.
compared to maybe like a 1991 in the Northeast versus like kind of like backwoods of Arkansas or Texas. No offense to people who live there, but sometimes those smaller places, big states, smaller towns can look like a little bit more backwards. But I mean, you do come to find out that Harlan was like a known creepskate. They interview, the cops interview the bartender, and she's like, wow, like it could be a ton of people who want to shoot that guy. I mean, he was like not a good person. It doesn't necessarily mean that like his death wasn't a bad thing, but you come to realize that guy was like basically had it coming.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, he sucks. He sucks. Yeah, so the ladies speed off. I think they don't have much money. They have like $41. Or they had like, didn't they have like 61, but then like one flew out the window?
Yeah, that was real sad. I was like, oh, God.
Like, come on!
$20. What is that in 1991? 100?
So they get like, they stay at some shitty motel, and Louise has to figure out like what to do. So she has in her like total money she has in her life savings is like $6,000 or something. So she calls up her man friend Jimmy with a Y, not with an I. And he is Michael Madsen, and he's like a smooth, rugged feller who like is okay with doing a life of crime to get certain things, but also will tell the cops the truth, or like one of those people.
Yeah.
Well,
what's the sitch there? Because like they used to date
their
or something?
boyfriend girlfriend, but like she doesn't have any
deal?
like, I think she's in like a million open relationships and is just like having sex with like whoever she wants, right? And he's like the special one. That's my thought. That's my theory. Okay. But they never get any further than that. So she tells him to get the money out of her account and then wire it to her in Oklahoma City, and she'll pick it up. And she's not going to tell him like what's happening, just that like something happened and she needs the money. So meanwhile, like Thelma has calmed down a little bit. She's listening to some music outside. She's feeling a little bit better. And then they see a really handsome hitchhiker does he not have a shirt on immediately, or is that later?
Yeah. I
don't know.
Yeah, probably not, because he doesn't wear a shirt for
most of it. But it's Brat Pitt. And he's like this young hitchhiker who's, I forget where he's trying to go. Like, is he like wherever?
I thought, was it Oklahoma City?
Well, that's where they're going.
Doesn't he like claim to be like a student?
That's where they're going. It's a coincidence.
Oh.
That's a coinkadonk. But Louise is like, no, we're not bringing you to fucking, we're not giving you a ride. That's the worst idea ever. And poor Thelma's like really, like I said, she's pretty naive. So she's like, oh, this guy needs a ride. We should help him. Not thinking at all like, we probably shouldn't do that because we just killed someone and we have to like make a run for it to Mexico. So Louise is like, no, we're not gonna drive you. So then they go off, driving around him again, and then they see Brad Pitt again, whose name is JD. Never a good sign when someone's name is just initials. Usually a bad boy. Usually a good sign. It's a good sign, but it's a sign that they're a bad boy, I should say. But they see him again, and finally, I guess Louise has turned around a little bit now, and she's like, okay, let's pick him up. I forget what makes her like relax a little.
I don't remember either. But she's suddenly in like a better mood about it.
She's like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. So they get him, and then they like kind of go on this like weird road trip with him, and they like form this like weird friendship between Thelma and JD, which is like super flirtatious and like weird. And Louise, bless her, is just like, letting this happen. Like Thelma needs a little like spark in her life, that kind of thing. But yeah, at the same time, still has her guard up. So they bring JD with them to get the money. So he waits in the car, and then she goes in there to get the money, and it turns out Jimmy, the boyfriend, Jimmy with Y, came there in person instead of wiring it. And so she's like, what are you doing here? So now, whatever. She has the money. They send JD on his way. They don't tell him that like they have money, but I'm sure he's like making that assumption because they're acting like pretty cagey. And at one point, Louise had to like outrun some state police officers.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, okay. So with the money, yeah, she gets 2 hotel rooms. So she gets one for Thelma and one for herself. Her and Jimmy go to like reconnect, wank a wonk, or talk or whatever. And then Thelma's in her room just relaxing. And meanwhile, Louise gives Thelma the money, the envelope with $6,000 and change.
Yeah, why did she do that?
Like she knows what Thelma's like. Like
I know
anything could happen. That woman is like a fucking tornado of like random chaos.
Bad
like,
luck.
Yeah, bad
Yeah.
luck. And then okay, so
meanwhile, the cops are like onto them. Now, this was puzzling to me because I'm confused, like how they put 2 and 2 together. Because when they left, you know, they bomb out of there as soon as they shoot that guy, and you know, this is 1991. Okay, if this was now, you would have like a credit card receipt, like you know who you were. You're paying in cash. You leave, whatever.
So,
and it's not like anyone knew what car they were in.
I think her car was unique enough that like all they had to do was
People
run a
did see
search
it?
of people who owned a Thunderbird, whatever, blue registered vehicle, and there were only like 2 in the state, and one was registered to a man and one was registered to a woman. And they know that he was dancing with 2 women, so they're going to find her. So I think it was just probably just like a long way around it, but they got there in the end.
I mean, it seemed too fast, and I was like, wow, that was quick.
So all of a
sudden,
yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, I was like, wow, these guys are good, and they don't like seem to be that good detectives. But anyway, so they trace it back to Louise, and then how then to Thelma?
Well, so then
because then they show up at Thelma's house.
So
and her
they
husband's there.
they talk to everybody Louise works with, so they knew like where she worked, and then
You're
like
right,
she's going away for this weekend with her friend Thelma. What's her last name? Thelma, whatever.
Right,
so then they go find Thelma, find out she's not there. She's on the trip with him. Talk to the husband.
Right.
So now they're talking to Daryl, and he's like pretty useless as usual. But they assume that Thelma will call him at some point, so they proceed to like kind of tap the house so that when she calls, they can record it and get a location. So this FBI agent, played by Harvey Keitel, I forget what is his name, Agent something, I don't know,
something, yeah, Slocum or something.
Harvey, we'll call him Harvey. That's his actor's name. Like we said, he's like strangely sympathetic, and I think part of it is because. At the scene of the crime, the waitress, remember, she's like Harvey, these girls aren't the type to murder somebody. Like she says it like 10 times. And
well, everyone says that who's come in contact with them, and once they know that they're like
but
criminals.
In this particular case, I think that the waitress was giving him like a coded message, like something must have happened for them to kill him.
Right.
Like they're not the murdering kind, so he must have done something to threaten them. So basically trying to tell him that like he needs to find the truth, and like that's how I read it, like looking like rewatching it. So he kind of makes it like his mission to prove what really happened, and he's just like convinced that they couldn't have murdered him in cold blood, like there had been a reason behind it. So he wants to help them. Is his
Well, also, is it like kind of that thought, he calls them like girls all the time. He seems like very protective, but also that like for women to murder, it has to be some sort of like threat to their life or like a rape situation. I mean, like you said, like it's not.
I mean, I don't think
as many
men believe that, or
evidences.
we wouldn't have any women in prison
not
killing.
Men, but him. He seems like. Really buying into like, oh, these are like nice girls who just something happened to them.
Yeah, because he trusts that waitress, and she was like, Frank. Maybe his name is Frank.
It's Hal. I just looked it up.
Okay, Hal. They're not the killing type. You hear me? They're not the killing type. So that there's like that whole parallel plot, right? So, meanwhile, Louise and Jimmy are having their discussion. JD shows back up or like calls her or something, and then she like tells him to come over.
Oh, he shows up at the at the door. It's all raining. Remember?
Yeah. And
like,
then he comes in, they're like chatting, and then they have sex, and it's like pretty freaking steamy. I'm not going to lie. Call the doctor. I loved it. So she has like a great time, you know, for like the first time probably ever in her life, actually like having some pleasure out of sex must be wild.
That's what she says.
And so she has a great time. So the next morning they're getting breakfast.
Wait, hold on. So then you find out that JD is on parole because he's a robber.
Right. Oh yeah.
He robs convenience stores, and he basically runs through like his little shtick about how he like robs convenience stores. Yeah, his whole like
Attention,
script.
ladies and gentlemen.
Also, you have Jimmy and Louise. Jimmy proposes to Louise in a very strange moment. He gets very angry and violent, and then is like, "Wait, I want to give you something. Here's an engagement ring." Bad timing, buddy. I don't know if that's the right time. I don't know.
Did not work. She said no. Basically, yeah. She's like, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what I did, but I did something, and it means we can't get married right now. Certainly not right now. And so he's upset, but he understands on some level, I guess, you know. So lets her go. So JD runs Thelma through all that. She doesn't mention the money, but it's just on the fucking like bedside table the whole time. And JD's just admitted like a thief, so he knows all the things. And he's been wondering like what are they up to? Why did we make this stop? No, you know, he's put the pieces together. He's not that dim-witted, that JD. So Thelma and Louise meet for breakfast, and Thelma tells her the story about how JD showed up, and she had the best sex, blah, 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 blah. And then I think Louise is like, where is he now or something? And Thelma's like, oh, I left him. He wanted to sleep in, so he's taking a shower. And Louise is like, Thelma, like, you left him. Where's the money? You left him in the room with the money? And poor Thelma's like, he wouldn't take it. He's not like that. And it's like, girl, he just said he's a thief. And so they run back up to the room, and the money's gone. And that's everything they had. Like, they don't even have, like, a penny to their name. Like, that was all the money. And so they're like, what the fuck are we going to do? How are we going to get gas? You know, it gets real dark. Gets real dark for Louise. She's like, this is it. This is the end of our rope. Like, we're done. So, Thelma just takes a turn and is like, you know what? I'm going to fix this, because I think she really felt pretty terrible about it, and finally realized that like she trusts men too much, and that she can't can't hold them accountable for making sure like she doesn't get into trouble, you know, like for saving her or rescuing her. Like, it's not going to happen. They're always looking out for themselves.
As she should. Kind of dead weight on this road trip. Let's be honest. She is, you know, she is very naive, but it's like, come on. Like, and she gets a lot of chances. So I'm glad she like basically took the reins and was like, okay, I got to fix this. Out of it. Maybe in the not most legal way, but she fixes it, right?
So she uses what JD taught her and proceeds to hold up a convenience store in exactly the same manner that JD would. So just like extremely polite, and his whole shtick is like, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. This is being held up. This is a robbery. Please put your hand, you know, and he's just like very smooth talker, just like says it out plainly and calmly. Doesn't need to shoot the gun, like, it's just like gets what he needs. So she recreates that whole speech, and this is basically, and then jumps to the FBI agents talking to Daryl and show him this video of his wife holding up a convenience store, and he's like, what the fuck? And like, he just can't believe it. And she's actually, it turns out, has a knack for it. So she gets the money.
She's a knack for
They're
crime.
on their way, and then Louise is like, okay, we might be able to get out of this after all. We might be able to make it to Mexico. So they decide to, I think, what happens at this point? There's like another police encounter. Oh, that policeman pulls them over.
Guy in the trunk.
Yeah, the policeman pulls them over, and it's like a very tense moment. And it's, you know, it's back in the day when like they didn't really have computers, so they had to like call in people to the thing, and then the people at the station would look it up and like tell you if there was like a warrant out.
But hold up. Was that guy going to do something weird though? Because have you ever seen someone be like, come over here and get into the front seat of my car?
That was very bizarre.
Like, I felt like something was going to happen. like he was going to try to either like convince her to like give him head or something to get out of it. I don't know. Like
maybe.
Something seemed a little off with that
Probably.
procedure, because I've never in my life seen someone be like, can you come with me and sit in this car? I mean, dangerous to him, first of all, to be that close to somebody, you know? So I feel like something was leading up to like some shady shit.
Must have been. That makes a lot of sense. So Thelma saves the day again and rescues Louise from the strange front seat with this cop, and very politely again tells him that he's sorry, but they're gonna have to take his gun and lock him into the trunk. So they put him in the trunk and they shoot holes in it so that he could breathe, and then they just leave him there and drive off. So here they go, and they're off. So now, unfortunately, while they could have been proven innocent by, defense in the first crime of killing Harlan, now they've actually done actual crimes. So now they're down a slippery slope of like, well, we've already gotten ourselves in this deep, like, why don't we just like keep going until like whatever, basically, is the mindset, right? Just like full outlaw, let's do this.
Yeah, Mexico or bust.
Yeah. So this is when they start like really they start kicking butt. They keep passing this like oil tanker who's like so gross, and it's like becomes this like recurring joke. They like blow up his oil tanker after like tricking him into thinking they would like give his nasty ass head. It's a great scene. And then at this point, Louise has talked to the cop, Hal, on the phone, and she knows that like he kind of wants to make it right, but at the same time, she's like, I don't trust you. Like, like I don't know. You can never really trust it from happening, I guess. So unfortunately, the last call she has with the cop, she stays on 1 second too long because he starts bringing up Texas, which is like this whole like thing she keeps kind of referencing. She doesn't want to travel through Texas. She never wants to set foot in Texas. And Thelma at one point's like, you got like raped in Texas. Something happened, right? Like that's why you shot Harlan, because of that. And you're like, oh, okay. But they never go into it, but something happened. And he brings that up.
And I think that was smart, though. Like, I think it was smart to leave it like kind of ambiguous, and for you to kind of come to your own conclusion. Like, you didn't need that details of that story to know that some sort of PSTD happened to her that like she takes very, very seriously about like, men's treatment of women, especially, in like that physical way. But so they
get the location.
make that call.
Yeah. So they get the location,
and
she stayed on too long.
When you tap phones or do a trace, you have to stay on the line for a certain amount of time. So when they called initially, they call before this time, and just to see like if the husband has talked to the cops or whatever. And she's like, okay, like, Thelma, you hang up right away. Like, if you like are talking to him and you think that he has talked to the cops or whatever. And so she calls him, and he's like, Thelma, hi, like super nice. And she's like, bye-bye. And like, she knows immediately.
He knows. That was hilarious.
Greatest scene. I was like, oh my God, yes, because he was always just like yelling at her, and he was just never nice to her. So she knew something was up when he was like so sweet to her. So this is the second time they call. Unfortunately, like Sweetie said, kind of Louise gets sucked down to memory lane or whatever when he mentions Texas, and stays on just a tad too long, to the point where they can trace that phone, even though they're calling from a payphone. They can trace it to wherever that town that they're at.
So they send the helicopter.
They're hot on their tail now.
So they send the helicopter, and they're like in the middle of the desert. So they're like driving out there. Hal like doesn't want them to do that because he knows it'll end badly. So he's like, just let me go in and talk to them. And he wants to keep it low key. But that doesn't happen. So unfortunately, the helicopters come. They explode that tanker, and then that kind of is like, oh, I think the helicopter comes like pretty shortly after that. And there's like a standoff with the helicopter, and they're like surrounded by the FBI and like all the agents in the helicopter, and then the real agents on foot, and Hal. And does he talk to them at the end? I forget.
No.
He's like, they just see them in the car. So then they talk to each other, and they're like, what do we do?
At this point, the Stephen Tobolowsky character's like, we can't treat them like sweet women at this point. they're armed and dangerous. You know, we know that they've committed a murder and now like a robbery. Like we have to treat them like we'd treat a man or anybody else. Like we got to come in with like guns blazing. And Hal doesn't want that to happen. Yeah, he wants to talk to them. He feels like he has this bond, whatever. But it's too late.
Too late. Yeah, so they look at each other, and Thelma's like, what if we just kept going? And Louise is like, what do you mean? Like, just go. And like, Thelma has this really great scene before that where she's like expressing how she just feels alive and like she's really, you know, like she's just, I forget what else she says in that speech.
I'm awake.
Yeah, like I'm awake. And you can just tell she's like full of vibrance and energy, and that she's like, I would rather live like 1 hour in this life than have to go back to a life of like or being now in jail and to live in a life of like, you know, not being treated well. Like this was such an amazing thing, and like I don't want anything to change that. And they really don't. I mean, they could turn themselves in, they could go through this long trial, but at the end of the day, like Hal said, like everyone said, they have committed actual crimes now, including locking a police officer up in a trunk. So like it's probably not going to go over great for them. I don't think it would be like terrible. They would probably get a lot of time, but they could have had a good career in jail. I don't know. I'm conflicted about it.
Yeah. They would have been the old ladies in Orange is the New Black.
Totally. So, but they decided to just keep going. So let's keep going.
And then they're at the Grand Canyon at this point. Yeah. Did you say that?
Yep. And then they like rev the car, and then she speeds over, they hold hands, and then they just launch off the cliff. And you don't see it crash or anything. No. It's just like
the Polaroid they took before like flutters out. I mean, I'm kind of upset that, you know, I saw the parody before this, because this is like a very powerful ending. I was reading some comments in that article that you sent me, and some of the people who saw it in the theater was like, oh my God, the ending was so stunning. Like we just had to sit in our seats at the end. Like we just couldn't believe that that's how they ended it. And like, what a cool like thing to see. Right. Yeah. So then when the parody of Wayne's World is good for them, spot on, but also kind of makes it sort of like you laugh at it now.
Because it's like
I got teared up when they do the handhold, the close up of the handhold. I still got a little.
You always
teary.
get like that. That's your thing. Your Achilles heel in the Sex and the City episode with Miranda has the baby too. Carrie. Yeah. But. Yeah, and I think they in Wayne's World too, they kind of portray them as like dopey women, like you know, like that kind of thing a little bit. But that was just like Garth pretending to be a woman, pretending to be Thelma. So,
well, they use in the Wayne's World parody like how they look sort of in the beginning, but by the end when they're driving off the cliff, they're like hardened bitches. They're super tan. I love how they're like tan. They're wearing these cool hats, these cut off shirts. Like they're like real cool bitches by the end. So that doesn't really like set with or gel with the parody at all. But I
guess you would have
it's
because they're appealing to the general public who maybe hasn't seen that movie, right? But you do know the cover, which I think is them in that stereotype, those outfits. Yes. And then you know like something happens at the end. So it was like one of those movies where people just like talked about it. So they had to include it. So it's I think like pretty much an exact reference to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where they remember they're like in Mexico and they're like surrounded, and so they're like, let's just go out there, like we'll fight for it. And then they don't realize that there's like 800 people out there and not just like one or two guys. So they basically like run into their death, but it's a freeze frame like on that situation. So that's just like the end of their story is how I read that. And it's like they're like, yes, it ended there, but it was like the story writer's way of just like the writer's way of kind of just ending that story on their own terms.
Right. And like, I think the theme of the movie is I'm kind of taking this from the article again that you sent me. The theme of the movie is like this don't settle kind of thing. So Louise kind of has this little sort of pokes fun at Thelma for basically settling for that loser husband, and something about like you get what you settle for or something. I forget like what the line is. So by the end, they're like not settling for that life anymore, right? They're just like, well, screw it. Yeah. Like,
go out on my own
I'd rather
terms.
Die than settle for that. So
pretty badass.
Not people were very upset with that ending, and it took a lot to convince people to do it. I think Susan Sarandon was she really had Ridley Scott's ear and was able to kind of change some scenes and give him some advice and stuff. So she really like pushed for that ending, because the alternate ending was that Louise pushes Thelma out of the car
saw that.
and drives by herself
Like, what
off
is
the
this,
cliff.
Broke Down Palace?
I know. So that would have been really terrible.
They had to
and
have
then
been
a lot of people are like,
yeah.
well, they should have just made it to Mexico, some sort of like happy ending thing. But I don't know. It wasn't that kind of a movie that it, deserved or needed a happy ending.
And like they didn't want any like bullshit sequels or anything like that. Like they wanted to just like it's like when TV shows like end their series before it gets canceled. Like it's like they want to end it on how they want to end it, and like they don't want people to create this like bullshit alternate thing. Like these characters are dead, so that's it. That's the end. But it's very powerful, and it really speaks volumes. This movie. It's like in the article that again I think it was in the Guardian like a couple days ago.
Yep.
And like that line where Louise says it's not that kind of world, and unfortunately, like 30 years later, it still is that kind of world, and. It's just sad. It's pretty sad, man. Pretty sad.
I know, but you can't. I wouldn't say that like we haven't made any strides at all.
No, but
I mean, they were talking
still
about
the argument today when a woman gets raped is, oh, she was all over him. She wanted that's always still the argument from the other side, right? So it's
I disagree. I think it's getting better, and there's so much attention to that now that. As soon as someone says that basically gets like thrown on their those people are
I think
blasted.
we like to think that
because we have this whole movement. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking,
movement's like a small. I mean, like think of how big the United States is, and like it's all states like this that make up most of the United States. Is like these sketchy southern states. No offense, if you live there, but that's what it's like.
I'm not saying it's 100% corrected, but you can't say we live in the same world as we do in what this movie has tried to depict.
They would have a better shot, sure. But yeah, it's just a reality. Yeah, so that's kind of it for what we had. Do you have anything to add or other call outs?
So yeah, alternate ending. So originally other people were who were cast in this, but then had to do other projects or something. So it was supposed to be Michelle Pfeiffer and Jodie Foster. Could have been cool. Could kind of see that maybe. Not you never know, because once someone has played it, you really can't see anybody else. And then also was thought going to be a vehicle for Cher and Meryl Streep.
Cher?
Interesting.
Or I thought it was Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep.
No,
and
Cher and Meryl Streep. Right. Yeah. And I like this. They said this in the article too, how there's a kind of a comedy and like lightness to this movie that makes it pretty fun to watch. Like it's not just like this like vigilante women like going after these terrible men. Like there's really some lighter moments to it, and the girls being kind of funny in the way they like talk and mess with the men was really kind of fun to watch, I'd say.
I liked Thelma's outfit in the Horrible Night. Unfortunately, her like long pretty white dress.
It was very cute.
Yeah,
and like I said, I like the evolution of their style too, because you really get them kind of being boring. Thelma's kind of housewife, cute but conservative, sandals, whatever. Louise is kind of a little bit more dowdy. She has her little headscarf and her cool sunglasses, but kind of like eh. And then they are in like jeans and cutoffs, and they're like all dirty by the end, and they're just living their damn lives.
Yeah.
What was with the random black cyclist in Arizona? Okay, totally. First of all, why was that guy cycling in the desert? Is that like a thing?
Maybe a thing to do. I don't know. We don't know how far. Like I don't know. Out there, it's like
he seemed to be like Jamaican and smoking a blunt.
Yeah. It was first of all, it was stereotypical, yes, but like I thought it was very like of the time, because obviously there's a cop in the trunk and he's like, help me, and this guy's like, hell no, I'm not helping you fuckers.
I know, it was funny.
And so he blows marijuana smoke into the little holes that are meant to be vents, And then he's like, "Bah, sucker," and like I loved that. I mean, I can't tell if that's offensive or not, but I think I like it because just of how it hits today. Like, fuck you. So I don't know.
This is like how my mind works. So when they locked that guy in the trunk and like threw away the key, all I could think of was like, man, how long is that guy going to be in there?
Well,
what is that like? How are they going to get him out? Like, who's going to come upon him? I just like went into like an alternate storyline of being like, what happened to the cop?
Well, you got to think like 10 cars drive by, right? Only probably like 1 or 2 out of those cars is not going to think anything of it, except unless it's another cop that drives by. But most people wouldn't. They're not like me and is like, why is there a cop car pulled over on the side of the road? I'm going to investigate it. Like they'd be like, oh yeah, he's doing his business. He's probably thought he was a speed trap or something, like just like parked there like normal. So probably a really long time. So
hope you're okay, dude.
Who knows?
I mean, that guy I think he might have been eventually sketchy, but yeah, you don't get to ever see that act out because they're like on top of that shit. I will say I enjoyed the soundtrack immensely. Some real good tunes in there. We'll definitely add some to the Spotify playlist, but it's in a sense a road tripping movie. And I will say the scenery shots and what they see, especially once they get into like the real western, I'm assuming like western side of Texas, canyons and all those crazy rock formations and just like the nights and stuff were really beautiful and like really well shot, and it seemed like super magical out there. So I know that's like a Ridley Scott thing, like landscapes or something like that. I think I read that. So enjoyed that part of that too. So soundtrack and the landscapes, pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Anything else we need to mention?
So I know the article said something about how, after this movie, Geena Davis really took upon herself to try to really get like roles for women and stuff. And she's still working hard. That is still like a huge problem. And I think that the big point of the article was also that women-led films are still like a real struggle.
That's what I was going to say. Like films that are like 100% centered around a woman or women that are not like girls trip or like whatever, like targeted female. I guess I don't know how you would describe this kind of film, but like mainstream movies
or an
dramas,
action movie with female leads, but that aren't like
comedies
over sexualized
or romance.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking about like, okay, I don't know why this one pops in my head, but like Tomb Raider or something. So they're like, okay, like that's like a woman leading this action film, but I feel like she's like kind of objectified in that and like too sexy, and it's not for women at all.
Yeah. So that's always the key.
Yeah. So that's like still a real struggle. I mean, I know when Wonder Woman came out, that was a really, probably the closest, best example we have. Thus far, directed by a woman and had like a really different take on how to make like a superhero movie for, like, without the male gaze, let's say. So that's kind of the one I'm thinking off the top of my head, but they're few and far between. I mean, that's for sure, right?
Yeah. It's pretty stupid, pretty dumb. And the argument is always like men won't want to watch a movie that's like centered on a woman is always, the argument. And this movie, I think, kind of broke that mold a bit because it got such good press and feedback, and got nominated for all these awards. So I think it did change that around a little bit. But now it's back to being dumb. So whatever.
Yeah. And it was funny. I was reading some of the comments of that article, and one guy was like, yeah, I like this movie, but I feel like all the men just play these like side roles that are very stereotypical, and that just like really like pisses me off. I'm like, oh my God. What? Have you seen every other movie in the history of the world where women are that role? Like, what? I just couldn't believe that guy like lived under a rock or something. Like, jeez. Oh God, it just made me like set the clocks back. Like, what the fuck is wrong with people? Yeah. Anyways, super cool movie. You can rent it. It is, it's a lot of fun. It's great.
Do yourself a favor. Watch it and celebrate 30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
Wow, just turning 30. What are you going to do with your life?
Really so young.
Don't get married. Oh, and I want to say cautionary tale. If you are in a marriage where you have to ask your significant other whether you can go away for the weekend, you get out of that marriage real fast.
Yeah.
Such a weird thing to be when she was talking in the beginning. And I know that was the whole point, but I was like, I mean, and granted, like, they don't have any kids. Okay, once you have kids, you might want to just, like, discuss with your partner, I would like to go away this weekend. But if you're just, like, you don't have any kids, you have to ask permission to, like, not be in the house. Wow. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Really gave me the willies.
It's fucked up. Oh, I loved it, too. You see in the trivia, so, like, the very beginning when he's, like, walking out to his car and he, like, trips all over this, like, construction debris and falls like smack on his butt like a banana peel slip. And I guess that was like an actual fall, and they kept it in because his reaction was so like he just like completely stayed in character and like kept going, and so they kept that in. I thought that too, because like I could tell when he fell, he kind of like he had like a funny look on his face, and I was like, I bet that was real.
Well, I love when there's genuine moments like that when they're filming, because there was another one with Geena Davis. She's like listening to headphones at the pool. Right. And Susan Sarandon comes and like yanks them off her, and she screams because like she actually was listening to music on those headphones, and it was turned up too loud, and she didn't hear her cue, and so Susan Sarandon had to come over and be like, ah. I just love those moments. It makes it just so much more real.
Oh no. All right. Well, yeah. So come and find us on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge Sent Us. Thank you as always for listening. Bye.
By no doubt who the rape artist is.
Definitely Harlan.